Hello everyone. Today we're going to have a look at how you can use your learning management system that is used at your educational institution to create groups in order to have online activities that could be similar to the types of activities you're accustomed to having and doing in the face-to-face classroom. So we're looking at online groups in the virtual classroom, and in this particular presentation we're going to be focusing on Moodle, but what can be done on Moodle can also be replicated on other learning management systems as well. So why create online peer groups? Well, basically, it's to try to mimic the environment that you would have in the face-to-face classroom in order to keep the learning of the students interactive, interesting, and productive. So it's to create an interactive learning environment that would keep the active communication that you would see in the face-to-face classroom, have that continue into the online environment. And it also allows you to communicate with groups of students in the same way. So when you create groups on Moodle, it's actually quite an easy process. And in this presentation, I'll just focus on some steps taken to create your groups. When you use Moodle, there is a tutorial usually embedded in your Moodle platform. If it isn't, it's very easy to find instructions online on Google. It's very user-friendly, and the students, they're at an age where social media is what they're very familiar and comfortable with. And in some ways, the platforms on Moodle or other learning management systems mimic that kind of social media environment. So it's comfortable for the students to learn and to know how to use. And as I indicated before, it creates an interactive environment between everyone who's involved in that class. It can be used for group assignments, group discussions, peer reviews, different types of tasks, and it applies to other learning management systems, as I mentioned before. For example, Blackboard, Google Classroom, and others. So the benefits of online groups, you have a list right here. And as you can see, it mimics a classroom environment similar to social media, and students are familiar with that. It maintains interactions between peers in the classroom. You can do different kinds of projects with it, and it maintains a community of learners in the classroom where they feel connected to each other without having each person working in isolation on their own in their homes. The teacher can set the groups based on the teacher's agenda, on the abilities of the students, or different projects that they're working on. And you can also change the groups weekly for each new assignment. You don't have to keep the same group for the entire session. So how do you create an online group on Moodle? Very easy. Basically, as all things, you start with settings. So once you click your settings icon, you get your drop-down menu, and you have to select More. Settings, More. That takes you to Course Administration, Users. What do you click? Users. And then, logically, you move on to Groups. Next, you need to create your group. So when you go around the middle of the page, it's written Create Group. Click on that. You'll be taken to a page that looks a little bit like that. give your group a name. It can be Group A or a more innovative name. However, if you have 5 groups in the classroom, for example, they each have to have a different name. Next, you've got your groups. You create all your groups first. Then, when you have all your groups, you will add members to your groups. So how do you do that? For example, you have Group A, Group B, Group C, and so on. Here we have a few other groups explaining causality, Group 10, Group 6. So you have different groups, and the reason why I have so many groups over here is because each week showed you a different group. Each week we had a different task, and so in order to differentiate, for Moodle to differentiate the groups, each week you need to recreate your groups, unless of course you're keeping them all in the same group for the rest of the semester. So how to add members to each group? First, you will click on the group over here. Next, you click on Add Remove Users, which is right here. Add Remove Users. Click on that, and you'll be taken to the following page. So here, you're taken to this page right here on the left of the screen. So you need to click on each student's name and click Add One by One. So here you would have a list of students. I actually blotted them out for anonymity of the students, but you would have a list of students here. So you will click on, let's say you want this student here. You will click on that student's name right here. Then you click on Add. And what happens when you click on Add? That name is automatically moved into that group. Then you move on to the next student and you repeat the same thing until you have all the students that you would like to have in your group right there. That gives you your groups and the members in each group. So when you want to double check, you will be taken to the page where you will highlight that particular group. For example, here we have peer review group 1, 5, and you have here the names of the students in that group. So here there were 3 students, there are 3 students in that group, and I have there are 2 teachers for this class. I've got their names here as well, but you don't need to add the teacher because you always have access to this group. So you have your groups. What now? What do you do with them? Well, there's a lot of things you can actually do with your groups. So basically, you'll be inserting them either into, well, yes, you'll definitely be inserting them into a Moodle platform to complete a particular task. So, for example, you can add them to a Moodle chat or a Moodle forum. And what happens here is each group is allowed into a particular, let's say, Moodle forum. So you have Moodle Forum 1, and you can make it available only for students of that group. Or Moodle Forum 2 for group number 2, and so on and so forth. Later on, if you want to make all the groups available to each other, there is a square that you can click to make them all available. Some activities that lend themselves to this, you can have group discussions or debates. They can share written work, share ideas, peer reviewing, among a host of others. Now I'm going to end this particular presentation here, but I do have another presentation on how to use a Moodle forum with your groups. So stay tuned, and I hope that this first video is useful to you. Thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.